right, tenets and beliefs. So we'll just make some notes here. So we're going to say one of the main holdings of this religion is that is that each land or area has its own spirits, own unique spirits. Only those who have access to the Sidnosh. Yeah, I'm curious how you pronounce that. Sidnoshe or Sidnosh? Maybe you can emphasize it in your spelling if you'd like. If you'd like me to pronounce it one way or another. I think Sidnosh kind of has a cool ring to it, but again, I'm heavily Canadian, as if you guys can't tell from my accent. Sidnoke. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. Sidnoke. Okay. Only those who have access, and that's perhaps more Slither sounding too, so that's good. So this Sidnoke, a local flower that blooms in some oasis in the expanse. The Slithers, of course, live. They're desert people, very nomadic in the desert. So, may communicate or understand them. Then you had also said that yes, their religion is also very syncretic, believing that other creeds and religions likely have discovered the same truths about the world, even if they call them by different names. All right, cool. We got some info there. Cactus flower. Yeah, that would be a good idea. It would be a bit more common for them to find. I guess it depends on, do you think that many Slithers have access to the Sidnoke, or only those who are part of this religious order, if you would? Maybe each roaming tribe has one or two members of their tribe who are responsible for that and seeking that out. Okay, we're also going to add in here. Yeah, okay, cool. That's kind of what I was thinking. So I think let's keep it as something that's only found in Oasis, and when the tribes near the Oasis, the religious kind of shamans would go and harvest this and make sure they stockpile a bit of it for their travels. And I think your He Who Basks character would be spending his time, or like his temples, if he creates any like places that are not nomadic, like if he creates a temple that will always be in the same place, then that would probably be at the oases or the oases. Yeah, sure. If it's poisonous, is it poisonous to other Slithers as well, or is it poisonous to humans and the Slithers can consume it safely, or do they have to prepare it a certain way for it to be not poisonous to anyone? Unless prepared in a certain way. Well, why don't we actually leave that up to randomizer? I think we should be getting some more of these roll tables in here. So let's say how poisonous, or no, wait, how do humans react to this? Oops. Sidnoke. So it could be it isn't poisonous to them. I mean, there are a number of things that humans can eat that that like animals can't, like chocolate, for example. Don't feed it to a dog, but humans can have it no problem. So it could be not poisonous to the humans, or it could be deadly no matter what. Or it could be they haven't discovered how to render it inert. Oh, that's a good option as well, yeah. It's not poisonous. Actually, we'll just add that on as the it isn't poisonous to them, but also isn't beneficial. All right, then we'll roll these options here. All right, let's see. 3. They haven't discovered how to render it inert. So for now, it is lethal to them in any preparation state. And the preparation the slithers have for it, I think, would not make it safe for humans. So it remains up to scholars of Gethra to try to find if there's any way that they can benefit or even safely consume the Sidnoche. Got to be careful if you're human trading with the slithers. Don't drink their tea. All right. And no preparation has been discovered that renders it safe for humans. At some point, I'll probably make a page for this Sidnoche as well. It's good to have everything kind of compartmentalized. Okay. Let's circle back here. We're going to make a quick section here, and then I'm going to answer Keller7's question about magic and tell you guys about the magic system a bit. Maybe we'll do that in the form of making a page so that it's also publicly accessible. Out of world details. And Bobicus, did you want your username on here as well? Well, you can let me know. Sweet. I'll probably also start a... oh, did that cause that to become underlined? No, okay, it's good. Save changes. Oops, what happened there? Cool. And we also need to categorize this stuff so it's easier to find. But let's add on here quickly history. All right. I think next I'm going to randomize one more thing for he who basks, and that is going to be how old was he by the time that his changes to the religion began to be felt as new changes to the underscore is important. Well, I mean, there could if my channel ever gets big, there could be another Bobicus. So we want to keep them all straight, you know. Hopefully not though. Okay, so let's add on here the history. Awesome. So we're going to add on just a note that okay, so this is essentially when did he who basks in radiance, when did his changes to the religion begin to become widespread? And so we'll figure out, let's say that is anywhere between 750 and 800. 788. Some organization changes by, we want to copy for that from that link there. Copy that. Began to affect the religion across multiple tribes. This is when it was first noticed by human scholars. Sounds good. All right, there we go. So let me, oops, that doesn't need to be part of a list. All right, let me organize this stuff for a second, then we'll take a look at it in the nice view. I want to see how it all looks because I haven't looked at it yet myself. And we'll drop Norris that was, oh, it's in a new page. So just give me 1 second here, guys. A little bit of housekeeping for our Nordos. I should, oops. This should be alphabetical, so let's Torn Shore of the Great Isle. There you go. Oh, actually, that's not how alphabets work. All right, so let's go back to our articles, and we will put into Far Nordos, Norris that was what we were coming up with when you guys first started chipping in. There we go. And now we can go back and add your guys in as world characters. This is a culture and oh no, this is a religion. This is a world character in the 700 to 800 period. And they are, we've already got categorized in there. Sweet. So let me just go back here and we'll take a look at this. So world characters, 700 to 800. We've got He Who Basks in Radiance. Awesome. We should link, at some point I'll come back here and I'll link this up with I'll make religion link to the other page. And then we'll also have the religions, Slither religion. Awesome. There we go. And then we also added in Nair. Let's take another look at that. Oops, world characters. Nair. Cool. All right. We should also figure out more of what happened to Nair. So maybe we'll do that after I get some of the magic information in here. All right. So we're gonna make a new page. Let's see. What would this be? Perhaps a natural law. Yeah. Natural law. Magic. Oh. Metaphysical arcane, I think, would be the closest category. Okay. Yeah, so, awesome. Bobaka's switching computers. You still out there, Kyler7? And now I can answer your question about magic. Sweet. Awesome. All right, so the overview of how magic works. So in Gethra, it's similar to almost like the Force in some ways, how you end up with magic. So you're either born with it or you're not. And it's kind of just random luck who will be magical or not. Now, for Lives of Gethra, what I would do with the characters there is I would just randomize when I created the character for someone to play, whether they were magicians or not, or whether they could become magicians or not, I guess is the more accurate way of saying that. And that, you know, so they might have magic, and it would just be totally at the mercy of the dice. With World of Gethra, what I'm thinking about is if someone's defining contribution to history is that they were a magician of renown or something like that, I'm not going to protest, people in the stream being magicians. But if they've already decided that they're a noble or a king or a general or something that isn't necessarily a magician, could be, but not necessarily, then we will leave it up to the randomizer, because if you were in a different walk of life, you might not even know that you're a magician, and you could be or you could not, and yeah. So that's kind of how we'll handle it on the stream here for the World of Gethra kind of history and world building. But how does magic work? So let's just first note down magician, or anyone in Gethra can be born a magician, but only those who are born with the gift may use it. Often it requires training to even use any magic. So many who might be magicians may never discover their gifts. Let's say their arcane gifts, make that even more fantastical. Rarely, certain gifts will manifest, particularly in magicians who are born with some elevated sense or aptitude towards magic. As with any skill, you could be a genius or a prodigy in magic. And I'll add most commonly visions of other times manifesting as dreams are the likely revelation of magic. All right. Of magical aptitude. Okay. So what can magic do, though? Magic describes one's ability to manipulate the world around them based on their familiarity and knowledge of the manipulation they are attempting. Scholarly understanding of natural phenomenon is the best way, or not the best way, is one of the main ways to grow more powerful at causing that phenomenon. Wow, messed up that word. For example, magicians who have studied, let's see here, injuries and healing, and natural healing processes will be able to heal injuries using just their mind. However, familiarity plays as much or more of a role than academic understanding. For example, a magician who has had and recovered from a broken arm can mend a broken arm faster than a magician who has not. So, within the magic system of Gethra, magicians who have experienced things are able to do those things easier. So this leads to training that involves, close study and meditation on things that are, advantageous. Of course, this is quite an example. I don't think many magicians are going around breaking their arms repeatedly so that they can become better at healing them. Maybe in some very radical sects there would be things like that. But for the majority, what this means is things like using the wind to push somebody or throw them off balance. That would be something that you could only do if you had experienced winds that powerful. So because of that, there's locations in Gethra. There's one, actually, if we call up the map for a minute. And again, all of this detail, all these details will slowly pop up on the wiki as I continue working on it. It's a lot of stuff to add for sure. But in the Lives of Gethra stories, there's actually a somewhat secretive magician's tower in Tycho's Ridge here, just off this coast here, where there's a natural formation in the mountain kind of ridge that funnels air in to a cavern. And so they've built a whole base around this, a whole little fortress. And people can go into that room. It's called the Tempest Chamber. They can go into this Tempest Chamber and feel almost hurricane strength winds while they're just standing there, trying to blow them away and stuff like this. So that allows them to then accumulate more experience with what it's like to be pushed by the wind, what it's like when the wind is moving, and what that feels like. Yeah, so exactly like you're touching on there. There'd be a lot of special locations that impact that. And magicians who have never... magicians who live, way up in the expanse or something, they wouldn't have experienced things like a hurricane before, in all likelihood. So they wouldn't have the same skills as magicians who live in stormy areas, for example. There's some really interesting anecdotes in the Lives of Gethra series we'll come to eventually. For example, one character asked, "Is it possible to just kill someone with magic? Just like look at them and kill them?" And somebody and their tutor, their trainer, who was teaching them magic, said that there are some recorded instances of magicians who had previously in their life suffered like a heart attack or something and recovered, and were able to then cause heart attacks in others. But it's very rare, and also in a medieval setting, surviving a heart attack is very unlikely. So, especially one that would be close enough to being lethal that you would use it as a weapon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, positive spin for if you want to cause violence in people. um, but yeah, so that's it's really quite a kind of unique kind of knowledge and understanding based system, and one that drives a little bit of scholarly pursuit, but not necessarily only scholarly pursuit. There is something, tribes that don't have much understanding of the natural world could still be very powerful in certain magics. Um, yeah. Let's see here. I think that's probably good for just a basic overview. I'll probably add to this more in more detail later. Um, Specific uses. So there's a couple things that magic can do that maybe are that no one's really sure how they were discovered because they're very unusual. You wouldn't know how to do this. You wouldn't never experience something like it in real life. So how do you replicate that? But somewhere along the lines, magicians learned how to, and then have replicated it. So, for example, one of them is teleportation. So I guess maybe it was discovered because people had traveled to different places and understood how travel worked. But it's also a very the way that teleportation works in Gethra is kind of unique in and of itself, and so it's kind of strange that humans even discovered it at any point. So there must have been some very powerful magicians at one time who helped that. Yes, yeah, I do break the rules of magic here. Do break the kind of conservation of energy, yeah. But I think that I want to ground Gethro quite realistically. But magic's one area where I thought it'd be kind of cool. It's still inspired by people in history who had a greater understanding of things, and that lent them some power. So there is still somewhat of an inspiration from a grounded perspective. But there is also some very large metaphysical conundrums that some of the magic creates. But that's true of a lot of fantasy, so I think that's fine. It's fun. All right, so teleportation. Unlike most forms of magic, teleportation seems to have its own rules and quirks. It is also unclear. Oh, that's a good point too. So there's let me find I'll make this an oops. Not exemptions, exceptions. There we go. Because there's some places that are just magical places, and it's unclear why they're magical in some cases, or there's some sort of backstory why they are. And there's also there's also creatures that are not from Earth. To answer your question about if there was magic in animals, I don't think it's been mentioned anywhere yet. Animals that can interact with magic. There's also a character who in Vaynuth's story, we're going to actually meet him soon, I think, in the podcast. But there's a character who is studying the Slithers to find out if the Slithers have can use magic or not, because there's been some accounts of it from travelers and some people saying, well, we've never found any evidence. So it's not really clear, do the Slithers have the same abilities with magic that humans do? Part of the problem there is Slither tribes are nomadic. They're also tribes, so there's not like a huge population center that you could census to find out who's a magician, as opposed to the humans who have these cities and developed society where they've been able to collect all that information. Like, oh yeah, some people are born with it and some people aren't. Well, it could be that it's true for the Slithers, but we've only encountered a few hundred of them. So it could just be that we got unlucky with those we encountered and none of them were magicians. So that's something that maybe that'll come out in a randomizer during one of these world building streams. We'll have to see when there's a reason to answer that question about animals. But there is lots of fictional animals within the world of Gethra who are not from Earth. For example, there's a wildcat that can create a burst of noise with a jaw, like it essentially has like bones in its jaw that will scrape, like there's pressure and it will scrape free, and it basically works like a bullet shrimp. I think that's what they're called, where it creates like a sonic burst, like significantly powerful when they release that pressure. And so these wildcats, when they do like their screech or predatory kind of cry at their prey, it can actually stun or even damage their prey, and they're very dangerous even for humans. We're very vulnerable to noise like anyone else, so you have some very scary accounts there. So there's animals that are somewhat magical because that's not an animal that exists that we know of, but again inspired by something grounded and real and just made into a kind of fun fantasy version. Yeah, go for it. I mean, it'll be here on the wiki at some point, but yeah. Yes, pistol shrimp is what yes, sorry, not bullet shrimp. Yes, the pistol shrimp is what I was thinking of. Yeah. Yeah, if you want, here, I can actually link you guys quick, probably. Let me, just give me 1 second here. I can link you to a chapter where I describe them in a lot more detail from the Lives of Gethra story, so... Arn chapter 30. So let me show you guys this. I did show it on stream at one point, but I might as well show you guys now quick. So this is the Lives of Gethra website, where we've got all the chapters that are in these books. And these ones they're a little bit more involved, the player interaction. Like it's much more like a role-playing game. Of course, that's not gonna, that'll work somewhat for streaming, if I wanted to, but I kind of envisioned the stream being something where we have less interaction per player, but we can get more players involved, because I would really love to see the world of Gethra become this communal kind of world space that we've created with lots of different ideas and lots of detail across lots of time. So I need to keep it a little bit less less ingrained in the detail and a little bit more big picture. And then eventually I'll continue writing the Lives of Gethra web series, and there will be a spot where people can sign up, have their name drawn, and perhaps become a character in this. But the turnover is a lot slower, as you can imagine. If I'm doing extensive storylines that don't end until they end, then it's going to be hard to get lots of people through there. Let me just... Yeah, so here. So on the website, so the way that this works is you could read all of the story chronologically. That's how I'm going through with the podcast. So if you guys check out my podcast on Spotify or just tune in while I'm here live, you'll notice that this is the order we've been doing. So Vaynuth 1, Dago 1, Vaynuth 2, so the second chapter, first storyline, Renato 1, Dago 2, and so we just continue going kind of chronologically. And this is all based on the dates in which they were released, as we continue to explore the history. So we've gone through a number of years now, all the way up to 1482 from 1478. But I also thought, this is a lot of content. Some of these books are quite large because I write a lot each year, and I think that's fine. I think that's kind of cool. And so we have another way that you could approach reading Gethra, and that is for each character. So that even with the podcast, you could listen to just Vaynuth if you wanted, or you could be like, oh, I really like Dago, and listen to just Dago. But then on my website here, you could also read that way. So you could say, oh, I just want to read just Dago 1. And click there, and it takes you just to Dago 1. So you've got quick access from anywhere on the site to any chapter. And you can do with that as you please for reading. But I'll link you guys to this chapter, Arn 30. So Arn is this, actually, this is a random image, but this happens to be Arn right here, so that's great. So Arn is a man from a tribe on an island. They're here, let me show you on the map. If I'm going to tell this story, I might as well tell it right. So right here, we have these two islands, Rizad and Skoa. I should have gone to let me view world. That's a bit better. So we have Rizad and Skoa, and they're there's no city there, and most of the people around, like this is a jungle coast, so there's people sailing to and from specific cities, but there's not a lot of development here. So there's not a lot of ships passing Skoa and Rizad, and therefore most of the societies of Gethra don't know about the people living on Rizad. So eventually we'll get around to reading Arn's storyline. He comes into the story a little later on the podcast and on the website. But basically, Arn is a member of a tribe living on Rizad, and they're just struggling to survive. They hunt the local animals. They make sure they don't overhunt them because there's not a lot of land there. There's not a lot to find, and they're for the most part unwilling to explore further. There's been a few attempts for people from this tribe to set off and find out what's beyond their island, but they don't have a lot of technology. They don't have great boats or ships or anything like that. And it's very far to get to anywhere nearby, so they've never really come back. Even Skoa, when they send people from Rizad to Skoa, the people that go to Skoa don't come back.